Today's episode was sponsored by Incogni. I know this will probably surprise a lot of you given how cool, calm, and collected I seem on here, but the truth is I'm actually an extremely anxious person. I get freaked out by all sorts of things. Flying, clowns, flying clowns. That last one isn't technically real, but the idea of it popped into my head just now, and I find it very upsetting. Of all the things that stress me out, though, perhaps the worst is getting an unexpected phone call. It happens all the time where I feel a buzz in my pocket and my heart will sink because, I'm not expecting a call. So something bad must have happened. I'll take out my phone and see that it's an unlisted number from Michigan, and I'll think that I don't know anyone in Michigan. Or do I? Before long, I'm crafting some elaborate story in my head where my grandma was kidnapped and taken to a warehouse in Detroit. Eventually she escaped, and with her last ounce of strength, she dialed my number from an unlisted payphone to ask me to come and save her from the hired goons who are trying to silence her. She knows too much. She accidentally stumbled upon a conspiracy involving Big Pharma, and I can't go into too much detail, but let's just say that cough drops aren't as innocent as they seem. She sent out a massive anonymous email to all major corporations threatening to go public unless they made changes, and they used that to figure out her identity because, well, my grandma doesn't actually know how to send out anonymous emails. She's not very good with computers. Knowing that she needed to be stopped, they lured her out of her house by putting a fake ad for an estate sale in her church's newsletter, and when she got to the location they listed, they dropped a big net on her and carried her off to Michigan. The thoughts that cloud my head get worse and worse until eventually I pick up my phone and say, "Wait there, Nana, I'm on my way." And yeah, that's usually when I realize that it was just a robocall. It happens all the time, and I don't enjoy it, which is why I use today's sponsor, Incogni. Basically, the reason that robocalls happen is data brokers. If you've ever given out your information, there's a chance that a data broker has taken it and then sold it to a bunch of companies who use it to contact you, even when you wish that they wouldn't. Once you're on a data broker's list, they're required to remove you from it if you ask them to, but unfortunately there are so many of them and they're so hard to contact that can be very difficult to do on your own. And that's where Incogni comes in. With Incogni, all you have to do is put in some of your information and sit back while they do the rest. Truly, I did it myself, and it really is that easy. Right now, Incogni is offering my viewers 60% off on an annual plan, so follow the link below and use code WILLYMUSE to start taking back your personal data today. Incogni makes it so that you don't have to think about who has your data anymore, letting you save all that worry for the stuff that truly matters. Like flying clowns. Trust me, they're coming. Normally, I start these videos by going into some long, unnecessary backstory of why I'm talking about the movie I'm talking about, but I'm not going to do that today. Honestly, someone just asked me on Twitter if I would talk about it, so yeah, I decided to talk about it. It's called Old Fashioned, and as the title suggests, it's an ode to old-fashioned relationships. Or at least that's what it thinks that it is. The movie was released in 2014, and it was apparently meant to be counter-programming to 50 Shades of Grey. And frankly, that makes sense, because it reads like somebody read the back cover of 50 Shades of Grey, came to the conclusion that that is what all modern day relationships are like, and decided that we need to go back to the way things used to be. They then proceeded to make a movie about it, centered around a romance that is just as toxic as the one in 50 Shades of Grey, but nowhere near as interesting. The Christian Grey of said relationship is Clay, and I only know that because for some reason when they introduce his character, they show his name on this weird silent movie style card. Had it not been for that, I probably wouldn't have internalized the name of this film's protagonist. Clay lives in a small town where he runs his own antique store called, get this, Old Fashioned. This movie has layers. And I don't know if there's a nice way to say this, but he feels like an odd choice for this role. Clay seems like he was meant to be this brooding hunk of a character, and don't get me wrong, the guy playing him is perfectly handsome, but he has more of like a Dana Carvey vibe to him. He feels so conspicuously miscast that the only reason I can think of for how he got this role is that he must have had something to do with the production. And actually, I guess I can just look it up. So let me just, IMDb. Old Fashioned. Click on the guy who played Clay. Okay. Okay, yeah, he wrote and directed it. And knowing that actually makes everything feel even more insane, because Clay is so impossibly perfect that the fact that the director cast himself in the role kind of feels like if somebody cast themselves as Jesus Christ. Which I guess actually did happen in that anti-abortion movie I talked about a few months ago. This is kind of a running theme with these Christians. Were it not for the film's puritanical views on sex, I would assume that the only reason this was made was so that the director could watch it back later to jerk off to himself. The sense I get is that Clay is meant to show the audience what a modern man should be, which is weird because I wouldn't exactly call him aspirational. Not only is he a massive asshole, but he's also clearly dealing with a lot of trauma and in need of some serious therapy. And speaking of in need of serious therapy, after we're introduced to Clay, we meet the film's female protagonist, Amber. She's quirky. I kind of feel like this was the moment I realized that this movie was going to be a bumpy ride. It's all about how much better things used to be, so the fact that it opens with a white woman driving around with a dream catcher on her rearview mirror kind of tells me everything I need to know. I feel pretty confident that the people making this do not have the most fully realized view of history. Also, Amber, put your cat in a goddamn carrier. I get that you're a free spirit, but that just makes me nervous. She drives until she runs out of gas, and then she takes out a newspaper and just kind of starts looking for apartment listings. Unsurprisingly, the apartment she ends up finding is the furnished room above Clay's antique store, so yeah, she moves in there, and that's how these two crazy kids meet. And when I say crazy, I mean that quite literally. Unfortunately for them, though, it's not long before their old-fashioned love story hits a weird little snag.
See what you think.
Wow, this is nice.
I need some references, of course.
Aren't you coming in? I don't bite.
How do I know?
What is this?
What's what?
Come over here and I'll show you. Seriously? What's your deal, stress boy?
Please don't take it personally. It's just, I made a promise to never be alone with any woman that's not my wife.
And that right there is the central conflict of this film. Clay is an old-fashioned guy, which means that he has vowed to never be alone in a room with a woman who's not his wife. Which, I guess to this movie's credit, is a logistical nightmare when it comes to starting a new romance. That said though, if this were realistic in any way, I feel like that would probably be the end of the romance too, because that is unhinged behavior. Granted, I'm a bit of a worrier, but were I a woman and someone told me that they made a vow to never be in a room alone with me, I would probably assume that that was because they were a reformed serial killer and they didn't want to be tempted by the smell of my hair. Not only would I not pursue a relationship with such a person, but I also probably wouldn't put myself in a situation where they had a key to my home.
That's sweet. I think.
Is it though? Like, aside from the fact that it's weird, it's also kind of gross. Even if your goal is to not have sex with them, to refuse to be in the same room as a woman still suggests that you only view women in terms of sex. It also feels very conceited to me. It implies that Clay views himself as so incredibly irresistible that the only thing that can keep women from throwing themselves at him is a closed screen door. Which, you know, given the fact that the guy playing him cast himself as the brooding romantic lead in his own movie, might actually be the case. And what makes this whole deal even weirder is that it's something of a new development. I feel like it would be one thing if this was just how he was raised, but he wasn't always like this, and we actually get a hint at why he switched things up in the next scene.
All right, ladies, that's it for the big stuff. I don't know what I would have done without you.
You'll find out soon enough. We ain't going to L.A. Oh man, is that what I think it is? Man. Oh, it feels like 100 years ago.
Should have been undefeated, baby. Come on.
Yes, top of the key. It's my fault.
I was wide open.
Actually, I guess it's kind of hard to tell from that clip why he changed, because Christian movies are not good at depicting debauchery. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be porn that they just showed us, but it really looked more like the video equivalent of a Sears catalog. But yeah, basically, Clay used to create Girls Gone Wild style videos back when he was capable of being in the same room as a woman. Eventually, the lifestyle led to him feeling empty and unfulfilled, so he decided to repent and turn himself over to God. I think. You'll notice in that clip I showed you that he pocketed a photo of a woman. That's actually his ex-girlfriend, and it's also kind of implied that his breakup with her was so bad that that was the reason behind his change. Still, whatever caused Clay to leave his old life behind, he didn't leave it behind very well, because the guy he's helping move right now is his former co-pornographer, who also happens to be his current best friend. And this character is weird, because he's kind of the antagonist, but not as much as he should be. After they sold their pornography business, he transitioned into being a Tom Leykis-style shock jock named Lucky Chucky who says shit like this.
Women are stupid.
So the fact that Clay has decided to keep him in his life feels questionable. It would be one thing if the movie made it clear that this was just a character the guy was playing for the radio or something like that, but it's definitely not. He's a weird asshole in literally every scene that he's in.
So, what's with the truck?
Oh, I got a new job. Isn't that great?
Where?
Hollywood. Los Angeles. I thought you'd be happy for me.
You told me last night I could move in.
Well, you can. I didn't say with me. I put a good word in for you with the landlord. In fact, I told him to keep my security deposit for your first month's rent.
And bootleg Joe Rogan isn't the only dirtbag in Clay's orbit. Just look at the guy he buys his antiques from.
You like anything?
Yeah, you should really tie that stuff down.
Hello there! You've been holding out on me. Where you been?
George.
What?
All my life, where have you been?
Down, boy.
How's the wife?
Oh, mean as a snake.
You settling in okay?
So far, so good.
You gonna say anything about that, Clay, or? Alright. Honestly, the only decent people in his life are his other best friend, who's kind of just used to bounce exposition off of, and his aunt, who is probably my favorite character in the movie because her only discernible trait is the fact that she continually pronounces tomatoes as tomaters.
Did you bring us any of our canned tomatoes? Clay grows tomatoes for us. Tomatoes.
I think the reason the movie includes so many blatant chauvinists is to provide a contrast with Clay and prove to the audience what a good guy he is, but for me it ended up having the opposite effect because, like, I don't know, I feel like if you're the sort of person who continues a business relationship with someone after you watch them catcall your tenant, then there's probably something not that great about you. Of course, the movie does not agree. The way he's portrayed, Clay is a paragon of Christian values, which is why he has no problem getting Amber to fall in love with him, despite the fact that he refuses to be in the same room as her. Their romance begins when the shitty antique stove in Amber's apartment breaks, so she calls Clay up to come fix it.
Hi.
You're kidding.
Okay, that does not seem like something a landlord should be allowed to do, but whatever. Clay makes Amber sit on her porch, and the two of them get to having a conversation through the screen door. Naturally, she's curious why she's forced to sit in the cold with a blanket wrapped around herself just to have her appliances fixed, so they start there.
So this theory of yours, I'm curious.
You're bored.
Spill it. I want to know.
You don't want to.
Make me ask you again and I'm coming in their theory or no theory.
Open that door, I raise your rent.
Again, this does not feel legal. I feel like Amber needs to check her renter's agreement after this. Also, Clay keeps referring to his whole deal as his theory, which feels like an odd choice of words to me. I'm not entirely sure what I would call refusing to be in the same room as 50% of the population, but it definitely wouldn't be theory. I feel like a theory would more be the reason behind why he is the way that he is, and the closest we get to that in this scene is this.
So you won't be alone with a woman?
That's the plan.
Anywhere?
Within reason.
What does that mean?
Well, out in the open, in public, that's okay. Anyway, just a small part of my theory.
Which is?
I don't believe that dating trains us to be good husbands and wives. You know, life partners. It just trains us to be good dates, that's it. Trains us to be skilled in the superficial.
Still, I don't know that that really explains much, because if his issue is with dating, then why doesn't he just not date? Just because you're in the same room as a woman, that doesn't mean that the two of you are dating, and I feel like he should probably know that by his age.
Dating is fun. Seeing the smile you bring to another's face, holding hands for the first time, learning new things.
Yeah, but what do we learn? We learn to be witty, charming, romantic.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right, but it's all icing, no cake. It's not enough. Nothing magical happens when you walk down the aisle. I mean, like it or not, what we do when we're single it's what we'll do when we're married.
Okay, I think I know why it irked me so much that he used the word theory. And that's because it speaks to a much bigger issue that I have with this movie. Clay, and by extension, the guy playing him, clearly thinks that he's cracked some great philosophical code. So he talks about his beliefs in this trumped up, flowery language, and it all feels like it's designed to mask the fact that what he's actually saying is some of the dumbest shit that I've ever heard in my life. Saying you don't want to date because it's superficial is like saying that you don't like oranges because you hate the way the peels taste. The good stuff is actually what happens when you get beyond the surface. And in order to get to a place that's deeper than the surface, you need to start from the surface because... honestly, I don't even know how to explain why that is. That's just the way that the world works. Even in this movie about why you shouldn't date, the only way they can portray two people developing a deep connection with one another is by slowly getting to know each other through repeat interactions. Which is all dating is. I don't know why the fact that there's a screen door in between them makes things more honest than if they had just done it at a restaurant. Honestly, I think one of the reasons why what he's saying right now sounds so dumb is because it's not the full story, and he knows that he can't say what he actually wants to. I know this will probably come as a surprise to some of you, but I actually detect a strong undercurrent of misogyny coming from Clay, the guy who won't be alone in the same room as a female. And I kind of get the sense that a lot of the things he's saying right now are predicated on his belief that he can't trust women. The more I watch this, the more his theories start to feel like trauma responses. Only I don't think that the movie realizes that they're trauma responses. Like I said, it's suggested that he is the way that he is in part because he went through a bad breakup, and it feels like the implication is that he learned that his ex wasn't who he thought she was, and then he took that lesson and applied it to all women. I get strong incel vibes from Clay, only for him, it's voluntary. He's the world's first vol-incel. And speaking of doing it...
What about sex?
What about it?
That takes practice too.
No comment.
Okay, one of my favorite parts about Old Fashioned is that despite the fact that it's all about the virtues of saving yourself for the right person, the guy making it seems very concerned that the audience might think he's a virgin. The way the movie portrays him, I think we're supposed to think that Clay is a sexual dynamo.
Remember that summer in Myrtle Beach with the redheaded cheerleader and her... Aw, come on, that is my favorite story. Will you please just... Please, Daddy? Please?
Later on, he's asked what his ideal honeymoon would be, and this is his response.
Clay.
David.
Yes, the ideal honeymoon. What you got in mind?
You really want me to do this?
No doubt about it.
The ideal honeymoon. A cabin in the woods. A case of bottled water. And not a single distraction from building a foundation of intimacy with my lifelong bride.
Okay, first of all, ew. And second, this just raises more questions for me. I mean, I guess they're questions about celibacy in general, but the fact that he explicitly has a sex drive means that he's just decided to cut out one of his own biological functions, and I'm not entirely sure how that works. There is no amount of money you could pay me to listen to Clay's opinions on self-gratification, but if I had to guess, I'd assume he was against it, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like something's gotta give. I feel like if this movie wanted to give an accurate depiction of the lifestyle it's trying to promote, it would have to include at least one scene of him throwing his sheets in the wash after a particularly saucy dream. That was gross. I don't know why I'm talking about this.
Not having sex does not make you a good husband.
No, but learning to control myself might.
Is it learning to control yourself, though? I feel like learning to control yourself would entail you being able to be in the same room as your temptation.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, but half of all marriages experience infidelity.
I never want to be divorced. Love should come first, not the other way around.
I find that part concerning. I can't really think of a bigger red flag than being against just like the general concept of divorce. Obviously, nobody wants a divorce, but if you get to a place where it's necessary and you're in a relationship with somebody whose sole goal is to not let that happen, that can lead to some very bad places. And frankly, if his goal is to avoid divorce, then I don't think he's setting himself up for success. Personally, I think you'd want to make sure you are physically compatible with somebody before you make a lifelong commitment, because if you find out that you're not after you've already said I do, your chances of infidelity are probably going to go up.
Not even a little kissy-kissy?
Just right there, to the wedding bells.
How long have you had this theory?
9 years.
Yikes. That's not normal.
No, it's not normal.
You don't believe that there's a right person out there for each of us? A soulmate?
I don't believe our job is the looking. It's the becoming. Once you are the right person, when you're ready, you know, then hopefully, God willing.
The thing that pisses me off the most about this movie is that every now and then it'll say something where I'll be like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And it'll briefly distract me from the fact that this is all utter horseshit. Because yeah, I do think that there's value in working on yourself and not rushing into a relationship if you're not ready, but none of that explains why he won't be in the same room as a goddamn woman.
Anyway, that's my theory. You asked for it.
Thanks for the enlightenment.
I have been talking about this scene for 3 pages single-spaced at this point, and I still have no fucking idea what he's referring to when he talks about his theory. I genuinely think he might not know what that word means. Whatever though, Amber seems to understand, and she's apparently quite taken by it, because she jumps at every opportunity she can to talk to Clay. This starts with the two of them running into each other at the grocery store, and quickly devolves into Amber breaking random shit around the apartment so that Clay will have to come up and fix it while she waits outside. And her acts of vandalism work, because Clay starts catching feelings.
Hey, George. Yeah.
How long have you been married?
36 years.
How did you know?
Really? The person you're gonna go to with that question is the guy who catcalled your love interest a few scenes back? Alright, let's see what he has to say.
Have a seat.
Here we go.
Yes, we are.
Buckle up.
We grew up together. We went to the same grammar school, junior high, high school. Sophomore year, she asked me to a Sadie Hawkins Day dance. I don't want to go, but I don't want to hurt her feelings either. So I said yes. It's only one night. Well, After the dance, she decides to kiss me. So I kiss her back. Oh, not so good. You know, she still can't do it right. Point is, now I gotta date her for almost a month because I felt guilty about kissing her. And I didn't want to make her feel cheap either. So about a month passes, and just when I am getting ready to dump her, her mom gets diagnosed with tuberculosis. I mean, she starts freaking out, man. I mean, crying all the time, calling me. It just didn't seem fair to break up with her then. I mean, my people knew her people, and then there's her birthday, and Valentine's, and senior prom, and graduation. Then I'm 19, and getting inducted into the Army. You want the love seat?
That was the most upsetting monologue I've ever heard in my life. Who hurt you, old-fashioned? No, seriously, who hurt you? This movie has such a contemptuous view of non-old-fashioned relationships that there are times when it seems downright spiteful. I truly would not be surprised if it turned out that this script was something that the director started writing as a therapy exercise to help him work through a bad breakup. Only once he started writing the script, he stopped going to therapy, and so then he never had the sorts of breakthroughs that he should have worked into a rewrite. Listening to that sad dude's sad monologue about his sad marriage made me realize another reason why this movie gets under my skin, and that's because there's something incredibly smug about it. This movie sometimes feels like the relationship equivalent of the guy who sits at the end of the table talking about how he would be able to fix everything if he were president, but then you ask him what he would do, and he says, like, I just fix the economy, lower taxes, and add a bunch of social programs. And then later on you find out that he's actually not even registered to vote. The movie's views on love kind of just boil down to you should never open up your heart to anybody unless you're absolutely sure that everything will work out in the end, which, yeah, that's not really how that works. Although it does work out here, so. Unsurprisingly, the two of them do eventually start their own unique spin on dating, which is really more like pre-marriage. Clay takes them to a priest who gives them a workbook to do that is usually reserved for people who are engaged, and they kind of just go through it to see how compatible they are, and it's very much not my personal idea of romance.
How many sexual partners have you had in the past 10 years?
Frankly, nothing that happens in this movie is really for me. It all feels very strange, and that kind of makes it hard to talk about. Because the fact of the matter is that even if I super don't agree with someone, I still don't want to kink shame them, and that's kind of all that this is. Clay has found a way to make his sex life more fulfilling to him by doing something that not everyone else does. And like, cool, whatever floats your boat. Some people like to save themselves for one person, and that's okay. And some people like to while their friend in the corner, and that's okay too. I think that if it's something that both people agree works for them, then by all means, be the weirdos who self-segregate by gender. I mean, maybe don't bring that behavior into the workplace or anything like that, but what you do in your own private life is none of my concern. One of the problems I have with this movie, though, is that it doesn't really seem like both people agree. Everything being done here is very much being done on Clay's terms, and Amber clearly wishes that things were different.
I know it's in you. I know it. Flatter me. Sweep me off my feet. Tell me I'm the most attractive woman you've ever met, even if you don't mean it.
I wasted a lot of words. I don't want to waste any more.
And when I think about it like that, it actually starts to make a lot of sense that this was released as counter-programming to 50 Shades of Grey, because they're sort of two sides of the same coin. Both are designed to take people away, to let them look at another relationship and think, if only that could be me. They're both extreme romantic fantasies. And they were both written by people who don't really seem to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. And like, whatever, I think that's fine. I don't think that every piece of media we consume needs to always portray 100% proper sexual politics. If you want to slip away into a world that's kind of fucked up, that's totally up to you. So long as you leave it there. As I understand it, a major criticism of 50 Shades of Grey is that it portrays an extremely warped and dangerous version of BDSM, and a lot of people read it and decided to try it for themselves. And like, obviously that's not great, but weirdly I actually think that Old Fashioned is worse in that regard. As far as I know, 50 Shades doesn't actively tell people to go out and try the stuff that it depicts, and well, I guess that technically Old Fashioned doesn't either. It also kind of does. Like a lot of Christian movies, it felt more like a lesson than a story. I very much walked away from it feeling like the people who made it think that this is what romantic relationships should be. And like, here's the thing. No, they super shouldn't. I had fun with this movie. There's a lot of insane shit here, but ultimately it did leave a bad taste in my mouth because part of me thinks that it's actually sort of dangerous. In my recap of the plot, I skipped over, well, a lot actually. I kind of half-assed that one, but the most important thing I skipped over was Amber's backstory, and there's a reason for that. It is not very conducive to a comedy video. If you'll recall, when we first meet Amber, she drives until she runs out of gas and then decides to live in the town that she stops in. And that is because she is literally trying to get as far away as she can afford. Some of you may have noticed that Amber has a cast on her hand for a large portion of the movie, and this is why.
My last boyfriend didn't want me to wear nail polish. I did.
So he broke your hand.
He didn't mean to. But he did.
No nail polish?
Sounds like something you'd come up with.
Depends on the color.
Okay, I think that was a joke, but well, like all jokes, I think there was a little bit of truth to it. Basically, this movie is about a woman who escapes an abusive relationship only to immediately find herself falling in love with a man with a lot of crazy rules who is obsessed with the idea of never getting divorced and has basically planned on marrying her from the moment he agreed to date. It seems to work out for Clay and Amber, but I feel like that's probably not how things would go for most people in this sort of situation. And that's the thing about fantasies, right? The reason they're fantasies is because they don't always line up with reality. The more I think about it, the more insane it feels that they included this backstory in the movie, because the idea of a woman getting out of a bad relationship and going out on her own doesn't feel particularly old-fashioned to me. You know what does sound old-fashioned to me, though? A man telling a woman that she's not allowed to wear nail polish and using physical violence on her when she doesn't listen. At the end of their first long conversation, Clay gives Amber a little bit more insight into why he's drawn to the old-fashioned lifestyle.
Hey, I know how weird it sounds. I know Making you wait out in the cold wrapped in a blanket seems ridiculous. But a lot of the boundaries that used to be common that we've thrown away are there to protect us. We don't have to go around using each other, hurting each other. It doesn't have to be that way. That's all.
And all I could think while watching that was like, who exactly was being protected? Like maybe you were straight white Christian man Clay, but that wasn't really the case for the rest of us. This movie hinges on the idea that things used to be better, and they just weren't. The idea of old-fashioned is the ultimate conservative fantasy, and I feel about it the same way that I feel about every other fantasy. It's fine to indulge in it, but don't try to force it on the rest of us. Keep that shit in the privacy of your bedroom where it belongs. But yeah, that's my video. Please like and subscribe and share and comment. Please comment. It really helps when you comment. Also, go back and watch my old videos. I don't know, if this one does better than the last one, then go watch the one I did about the X-Men, because I liked how that one turned out and it didn't do particularly well. So maybe if I like support it here, it'll do better there. Probably not. The algorithm does not seem to care for me, but I'm still fighting. Also, if you really want to support me and you have some disposable income, you can consider giving to my Patreon or super thanksing me, which, speaking of, I have a couple of super thanks to super thanks back. Thank you to I Am Probably Wrong, and it's either Patrick P. Helen 279 or Patrick Felon 279. I appreciate y'all. It really helps out. Yeah. Also, thank you once more to Incogni for sponsoring this episode. I really appreciate it. If you're interested in their product, the information is below. It really helps the channel out if you check it out, so consider it. But yeah, that's my video. Bye. Just kidding. The real ones know it's time for me to pose for a thumbnail photo while my patrons' names scroll up the screen. And for this one, I don't know. It's going to be called something like, I think I'm going to call it the Christian 50 Shades of Grey, because I think that will be like, that's weird enough that it'll, so like the Christian 50 Shades of Grey is weirder than it sounds. Let's do that. So I'll do just like a confused face. I think that one you'd like the, I think I like the way that looks. That's very, it's very true to my personality, I think. Like, huh? I feel like I should be a little more shocked in this one, like, what? If I do this, hands are the bane of art, apparently, because they're really hard to Photoshop around, especially with this fucker in the back. It's just constant changing backgrounds. 50 Shades of Grey? What? Maybe if I keep them on my black background thing, I'll be... That looks like Mr. Burns. Okay, so just forget the hands. And now I'm thinking about my hands. What the hell? Okay, I'll sit on them. Does that look weird? Yeah, it does. Okay, wait. I'll just do like scratching my head, because I actually do kind of have an itch here too. Fuck, I hope I don't have lice. Why would I have lice though? I'm like 40. All right. What the fuck? It really is a weird movie. I recommend you guys check it out. It's like insane. I've never seen a movie that was like, it was like clearer that I am just watching something that someone should have talked about in therapy. If that makes sense. Clearly the guy who made it had a bad relationship and made a very poorly disguised movie about his own pathologies. So, highly recommend. I think it's on Tubi, so you can watch it for free. In fact, I know it was on Tubi because I had to edit around commercials from the file I downloaded. It's weird that I never pose with my knitting, huh? It's kind of like a big part of the show. Maybe I'll try that. I feel like people click in who are new and they're like, why are you knitting? And it's like, I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I think it was because, why do I knit? I mean, I have my reasons, but like, they're not good. I think the main one is because when I started out, most people knew me from Drawfee, so it was like an arts related channel, and this was like the only art that I knew how to do, so I was like, maybe that'll translate to people jumping over. It kind of did, but not, I don't know. It's also, as I've just demonstrated, I don't really know what to do with my hands, so let's try. Although this might turn off new viewers because they might see this and be like, okay, why is that weird effeminate witch man knitting when it's about a Christian movie? That's a lot of things. I don't know how the internet works. Hopefully something's in there, but I gotta go. Goodbye.